Shalom and welcome to Scripture 365. Today we are going to read Proverbs chapter 22, and since starting Saturday night starts Purim, we are going to read the Book of Esther, the first five chapters. So get your Bibles and follow me. Proverbs chapter 22. Repute is preferable to great wealth. Grace is better than silver and gold. Rich man and poor man meet. Yah made them both. The shrewd man saw trouble and took cover. The simple keep going and paid the penalty. The effect of humility is fear of Yah, wealth, honor, and life. 5. Thorns and snares are in the path of the crooked. He who values his life will keep far from them. Train a lad in the way he ought to go. He will not swerve from it even in old age. The rich ruler, the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. He who sows injustice shall reap misfortune. His rod of wrath shall fail. The generous man is blessed, for he gives of his bread to the poor. 10. Expel the scoffer, and contention departs. Quarrel contumely cease. A pure-hearted friend, his speech is gracious. He has a king for his companion. The eyes of Yah watch the wise man. He subverts the words of the treacherous. The lazy man says, "There's a lion in the street. I shall be killed if I step outside." The mouth of a forbidden woman is a deep pit. He who is doomed by Yah falls into it. 15. A folly settles in the heart of a lad. The rod of discipline will remove it. To profit by withholding what is due to the poor is like making gifts to the rich, pure loss. Incline your ear and listen to the words of the sages. Pay attention to my wisdom. It is good that you store them inside you, and that all of them be constantly on your lips, that you may put your trust in Yah. I let you know today, yes, you. 20. Indeed, I wrote down for you a threefold law, wise counsel, to let you know truly reliable words, that you may give a faithful reply to him who sent you. Do not rob the wretched, because he is wicked. Do not crush the poor man in the gate. For Yah will take up their cause and despoil those who despoil them of life. Do not associate with an irascible man, or go about with one who is hot-tempered. 25. Lest you learn his ways and find yourself ensnared. Do not be one of those who give you the hand, who stand surety for debts, lest your bed is taken from under you when you have no money to pay. Do not remove the ancient boundary stone that your ancestors set up. See, a man skilled at his work. He shall attend upon kings. He shall not attend upon obscure men. Let's turn to the Book of Esther. Esther, chapter 1, starting on verse 1. It happened in the day of Xerxes, that Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days, when King Xerxes occupied the royal throne in the fortress Shushan, in the third year of his reign, he gave a banquet of all the officials and courtiers, the administration of Persia and Media, the nobles and the governors of the provinces in his service. For no fewer than 180 days, he displayed For no fewer than 180 days, he displayed the vast riches of his kingdom and the splendid glory of his majesty. 5. At the end of this period, the king gave a banquet for 7 days in the court of the king's palace garden for all the people who lived in the fortress Shushan, high and low alike. They were hanging of white cotton, blue wool, caught up with the cords of fine linen and purple wool to silver rods and alabaster columns, and there were couches of gold and silver on the pavement of marble, alabaster, mother of pearl, and mosaics. Royal wine was served in abundance, as befits a king, in golden beakers of various designs, and the rule for all the drinking was no restriction. For the king had given orders to every palace steward to comply with each man's wishes. In addition, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. 10. On the seventh day, when the king was merry with wine, he ordered Mehuman, Bisephar, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Sephar, and Carcas, the 7 eunuchs in attendance on King Xerxes, to bring Queen Vashti before the king wearing a royal diadem, to display her beauty to the peoples and the officials, for she was very beautiful. But Queen Vashti refused to come to the king's command. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command and conveyed by the eunuchs. The king was greatly incensed, and his fury burned within him. Then the king consulted the sages, learned in procedure, for it was a royal practice to turn to all who were versed in law and precedent. His closest advisors were Kashena, Shetha, Atmatha, Tarashish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 ministers of Persia and Media who had access to the royal presence and occupied the first place in the kingdom. 15. What, he asked, shall be done according to law to Queen Vashti for failing to obey the command of King Xerxes, conveyed by the eunuchs? Thereupon Memkuhan declared in the presence of the king and ministers, Queen Vashti has committed an offense, not only against your majesty, but also against all the officials and against all the people in the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's behavior will make all wives despise their husbands, as they reflect the King Xerxes himself ordered Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. To this very day, the ladies of Persia and Media, who have heard of the queen's behavior, will cite it to all your majesty's officials, and there will no one of scorn and provocation. If it please your majesty, let a royal edict be issued by you, and let it be written into law of Persia and Media, so that it cannot be abrogated, that Vashti shall never enter the presence of King Xerxes, and let your majesty bestow her royal state upon another who is more worthy than she. Then will the judgment executed by your majesty resound throughout the realm, vast though it is, and our wives will treat their husbands with respect, high and low alike. The proposal was approved by the king and the ministers, and the king said to Memucan, proposed. Dispatches were sent to all the provinces of the king, to every province in its own script, and every nation in its own language, that every man should wield authority in his home and speak the language of his own people. Chapter 2 of Esther, verse 1. Sometime afterwards, when the anger of the king Xerxes subsided, he thought of Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. The king's servants who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for your majesty. Let your majesty appoint officers in every province of your realm to assemble all the beautiful young virgins at the fortress of Shushan, at the harem, under the supervision of Hageth, the king's eunuch, guardian of the women. Let them be provided with their cosmetics, and let the maiden who places your majesty be queen instead of Vashti. And let the maiden who pleases your majesty be queen instead of Vashti." The proposal pleased the king, and he acted upon it. 5. In the fortress Shushan lived a Jew by the name of Mordecai, son of Yair, of Shimei, son of Kish, of the Benjamites. Kish had been exiled from Jerusalem in the group that was carried into exile with King Yahowah of Judah, which had been driven into exile by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. He was foster father to Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter. For she had neither father nor mother. The maiden was shapely and beautiful, and when her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her as his own daughter. When the king's order and edict was proclaimed, and when many girls were assembled in the fortress Shushan under the supervision of Haggai, Esther too was taken into the king's palace under the supervision of Haggai, guardian of the women. The girl pleased him and won his favor, and he hastened to furnish her with her cosmetics and her rations, as well as with the 7 maids who were her due from the king's palace. And he treated her and her maids with special kindness in the harem. 10. Esther did not reveal her people or her kindred, for Mordecai had told her not to reveal it. Every single day, Mordecai would walk about in the front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was faring and what was happening to her. When each girl's turn came to go into King Ahasuerus at the end of the 12 months, treatment prescribed for women, for that was the period spent on purifying women, 6 months with oil and myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and women's cosmetics. It was after that the girl would go to the king. Whatever she asked for would be given to her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. She would go in the evening and leave in the morning for a second harem. Her charge, the Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, guardian of the concubines. She would not go again to the king unless the king wanted her, when she would be summoned by name. 15. When the turn came for Esther, daughter of Abishayil, the uncle of Mordecai, who had adopted her as his own daughter, to go to the king, she did not ask for anything but what Haggai, the king's eunuch, guardian of the women, advised. Yet Esther won the admiration of all who saw her. Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus in his royal palace on the 10th month, which is the month Tevet, in the seventh year of his reign. The king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she won his praise and favor more than all the virgins. So he set a royal diadem on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. The king gave a great banquet for all his officials and courtiers. The banquet of Esther, he proclaimed a remission of taxes for the provinces and distributed gifts as befits a king. When the virgins were assembled the second time, Mordecai sat in the palace gate. But Esther did not reveal her kindred or her people, as Mordecai had instructed her, for Esther obeyed Mordecai's bidding, as she had done when she was under his tutelage. At that time, when Mordecai was sitting in the palace gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the threshold, became angry and plotted to do away with King Ahasuerus. Mordecai learned of it and told it to Queen Esther, and Esther reported it to the king in Mordecai's name. The matter was investigated and found to be so, and the two were impaled on stakes. This was recorded in the Book of Annals at the instance of the king. Chapter 3, verse 1. Sometime afterwards, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. He advanced him and seated him higher than any of his fellow officials. All the king's courtiers in the place gave knelt and bowed low to him. For such was the king's order concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel or bow low. Then the king's courtiers who were in the palace gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's order?" When they spoke to him day after day, and he would not listen to them, they told Haman, in order to see whether Mordecai resolves would prevail. For he had explained to them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel or bow low to him, Haman was filled with rage. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Having been told who Mordecai's people were, Haman plotted to do away with all the Jews, Mordecai's people, throughout the land of Xerxes. In the first month, that is, the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Xerxes' Purim, which means the lot was cast before Haman concerning every day and every month until it fell on the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar. Haman then said to King Xerxes, "There is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the other people in all the provinces of your realm, whose laws are different from those of any other people, and who do not obey the king's laws. And it is not in your majesty's interest to tolerate them. If you please, your majesty, let an edict be drawn for their destruction, and I will pay 10,000 kickarot of silver to the stewards for this deposit into the royal treasury." 10. Thereupon the king removed his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the foe of the Jews. And the king said, "The money and the people are yours to do with as you see fit." On the 13th day of the first month, the king's scribes were summoned, and a decree was issued, as Haman directed, to the king's satraps, to the governors in every province, and to all the officials of every people, to every province on its own script, and to every people in their own language. The orders were issued in the name of King Xerxes and sealed with the king's signet. Accordingly, written instructions were dispatched by couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy, massacre, and exterminate all the Jews, young and old, children and women, on a single day on the 13th day of the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. The text of the document was to the effect that a law should be proclaimed in every single province. It was to be publicly displayed to all the people so that they might be ready for that day. The courtiers went out, prostrated on the royal mission. The courtiers went out post-haste on the royal mission, and the decree was proclaimed in the fortress Shushan. The king and Haman sat down to feast, but the city of Shushan was dumbfounded. Chapter 4. When Mordecai learned all that had happened, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes. He went through the city crying out loudly and bitterly until he came in front of the palace gate, for one could not enter the palace gate wearing sackcloth. Also, in every province that the king's command and decree reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing, and everybody lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's maidens and eunuchs came to inform her. The queen was greatly agitated. She sent clothing for Mordecai to wear, so that he might take off his sackcloth, but he refused. 5. Thereupon Esther summoned Hathach, one of the eunuchs, whom the king had appointed to serve her, and sent him to Mordecai to learn the why and wherefore of it all. Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the palace gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him and all about the money that Haman had offered to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him the written text of the law that had been proclaimed in Shushan for the destruction. He bade him show it to Esther and inform her, and charge her to go to the king and to appeal to him and to plead with him for her people. When Hathach came and delivered Mordecai's message to Esther. 10. Esther told Hathach to take back to Mordecai the following reply. All the king's courtiers and the people of the king's province know that if any person, man or woman, enters the king's presence in the inner court without having been summoned, there is but one law for him, that he be put to death. Only if the king extends the golden scepter to him may he live. Now I have not been summoned to visit the king for the last 30 days. When Mordecai was told what Esther had said, Mordecai had this message to deliver to Esther. Do not imagine that you, of all the Jews, will escape with your life by being in the king's palace. On the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another quarter, while you and your father's house will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have attained to royal position for just such a crisis. Then Esther sent back to answer to Mordecai, go assemble all the Jews who live in Shushan and fast in my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maidens will observe the same feast. I and my maidens will observe the same fast. Then I shall go to the king, though it be contrary to the law, and if I am to perish, I shall perish. So Mordecai went about the city and did just as Esther had commanded him. 5. On the 3rd day, Esther put on the royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, facing the king's palace, while the king was sitting on his royal throne in the throne room, facing the entrance of the palace. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won his favor. The king extended to Esther the golden scepter which he had in his hand, and Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. What troubles you, Queen Esther? The king asked her. And what is your request? Even to half the kingdom it shall be granted you. If it please your majesty, Esther replied, let your majesty and Haman come today to the feast that I have prepared for them. 5. The king commanded, tell Haman to hurry and do Esther's bidding, so that the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. At the wine feast, the king asked Esther, what is your wish? It shall be granted to you. And what is your request? Even to have the kingdom, it shall be fulfilled. My wish, replied Esther, my request. If your majesty will do me the favor, if it pleases your majesty to grant me my wish and accede to my request, let your majesty and Haman come to the feast which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do your majesty's bidding. That day Haman went out happy and lighthearted. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the palace gate, and Mordecai did not rise or even stir on his account, Haman was filled with rage at him. Nevertheless, Haman controlled himself and went home. He sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh, and Haman told them about his great wealth and his many sons, and all about the king. The king had promoted him and advanced him above the officials and the king's courtiers. What is more, said Haman, Queen Esther gave a feast, and besides the king, she did not have any but me, and tomorrow too I am invited by her, along with the king. Yet all this means nothing to me every time I see the Jew Mordecai sitting in the palace gate. Then his wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, let a stake be put up 50 and high, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai impaled on it. Then you can go gaily with the king to the feast. The proposal pleased Haman, and he had the stake put up. Thus concludes the first part of the Book of Esther. I hope you have been blessed, and join me again tomorrow for further reading of Proverbs chapter 23 and Esther's and picking up Esther from chapter 6. Thank you very much. May God's light shine upon your path, and may He lead you unto His righteousness and give you shalom. In Yeshua's name, Amen.